I would like to introduce you to a tarot deck that began its story back in the 70s when a young boy was introduced to the juggernaut of rock music, David Bowie, by his dad. That boy was David DeAngelis, the creator of this deck. And this little encounter set in motion a collaboration with this great artist 20 years later. This deck draws inspiration from sci-fi, kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, and classic decks like the Solo Busca Tarot. And if you haven't guessed the name yet, I'm talking about the Starman Tarot, a deck that brings all these elements together in an amazing way. Welcome back to Lunar Core Tarot. I'm Jay, and in this video I'll share with you a brief story of the deck. We'll take a close look at the guidebook, explore how the deck is structured and how it works, and do one card reading to see how it performs. And if you stay until the end of the video, I'll give you a sneak peek to the next week deck I'll be reviewing. So the idea of this deck goes back to 1995 during David DeAngelis, the author of this deck, collaboration with David Bowie, albums Outside and Earthlings. And during this time, the whole idea of having a tarot deck inspired by Bowie artist version first emerged. But deck wasn't realized until much later when DeAngelis moved to Bali, and in 2000 he started designing what became the Starman Tarot. And this deck was published by Los Scarabeo. As I mentioned, it's one of my favorite publishers of tarot decks, and it's very classic Los Scarabeo deck. If you when we start looking at it, you understand what I mean. It's that Italian design, and I guess the style of the deck is very classic Los Scarabeo. Let's have a look at what's inside. And by the way, the box for this deck is quite huge. This is a Starman Tarot Kit Edition, and it comes with a larger box and I assume slightly larger guidebook. And if I were you, I would go for this version because it's only a little bit more pricier, but you get way more value, I would say. Yes. And inside we're greeted by the guidebook, and I'll give you a quick look at what that looks like, and then we dive into the cards. There are much more to this deck that I gave you in the introduction, and if you read it through, there's a story about the David's interaction with David Bowie and how this deck came about. This is the earlier version of a Lover's card, and which I would say probably my favorite comparing to the final version, and I'll tell you why when we will be reviewing the deck. Reference to kintsugi, and this is quite interesting. You'll see it when this is the back of the cards. You will see it when we review the deck. And yeah, it's a bit of a history of tarot in this book, going from Visconti all the way to Starman, and cards meaning. So the way you would use this deck, you get the card out obviously in your readings, and you confirm the meaning here, because the meaning is different from what you potentially may expect. And let's talk about how this deck is structured before we begin. So this deck is influenced by traditional decks like Solo Busca, Marseille, and Rider-Waite, but the imagery is completely different, obviously, and like some cards are renamed. Like for instance, this one here, the Fool, is called the Sacred Clown. And there's also slight changes to the minor arcana, as you will see. Instead of having the pages and knights, you've got princes and princesses, which corresponds to different version of energy, which we'll talk about later on. And without further ado, let's dive into the deck. So this is the Fool, the Sacred Clown, the Starman, and to me, with the Alchemist, this card represents David Bowie. I think that's pretty recognizable from looking at the card here. You can almost see his face. And the designer author used sacred geometry, like you can see here. There's the Tree of Life, there's a Kabbalah, and you'll see more of those images as we go through the deck. The High Priestess. And by the way, the back of a card, this is the alien language So this card also inspired by sci-fi, as I mentioned, and this is what this button represents on the back of each card. The Empress is another example of sacred geometry, and you probably already noticed the Hierophant. This is the new version of Lover's card, and you can see here it's more sexualized, which I prefer the original version more, but this is intentional. You can see bees here, right, and honey, that represents the exchange of energy. Also the kintsugi that I mentioned, you can almost see this gold trickles through the card decks, the cards, and that is another element that David's used here, the strength. Slightly different take with 2 lines here. Now the alien is the Hermit card, which also has a background story in the book. The Wheel, and I believe this is a Wheel of Life rather than the Wheel of Fortune, it's called in the book. The Justice card. The Hanged Man. Death, the Temperance, the Devil, a different take on it rather than having a couple here. There's almost like a Sphinx creatures here. The Tower is another take, so this is almost like sci-fi. It's using the steampunk analogy and almost look like an installation from the Burning Man. The Star, the Moon, the Sun, the Judgment, and the World card. Soul CNI, the Typewriter. Now we're moving to Minor Arcana. The Ace of Cups, the Two of Cups, 3 of Cups. Now the imagery here is slightly corresponding to original meaning, but it also has its own take. When you will see that when we do one card read. 5 of Cups, 6 of Cups. Also street art like this one here, you can see it looks like graffiti work. The 8 of Cups. An example of sacred geometry, small street art type of work. The 9 of Cups, 10 of Cups, Princess of Cups. This is the change from a traditional deck, right? So instead of having a page, you have Princess, and Princess is a innocent, like feminine energy, followed by Prince, and Prince is more young energy, both sexes. It's universal in this sense. The Queen of Cups, it represents visceral feminine energy, and of course the King of Cups, it's the male energy. Moving to Wands, it's Ace of Wands, the 2 of Wands, just another boy imagery here. 3 of Wands. It's a very futuristic deck. 4 of Wands, 5 of Wands, 6 of Wands, and each card has its own history. That's what I quite like about it. It's a modern take on a traditional tarot, with quite a profound meaning. It's not just a copy of a traditional deck. You can see that each card has been a very long process of designing each card and its own story as well. Queen of Wands, Ace of Wands, 2 of Swords, 3 of Swords, 4 of Swords. That's another David Bowie's inspired card here. You can almost recognize his face. 5 of Swords, And swords are very classic too. Six of Swords, the traditional decks. You can see it's a card of challenges and struggles, thoughts and communication. Seven of Swords, Eight of Swords, Nine of Swords, another ominous image, and a ten of Swords. Princess of Swords, Prince of Swords. This reminds me of the Crow movie character. Queen of Swords, King of Swords, Ace of Pentacles, Two of Pentacles, Three of Pentacles, no sacred geometry imagery here, Four of Pentacles, Five of Pentacles, Six of Pentacles, Seven of Pentacles, Eight of Pentacles, it's a cube of life, no geometry, Nine of Pentacles, Ten of Pentacles, Princess of Pentacles, Prince of Pentacles, and Queen of Course, Queen of Pentacles, and finally the King of Pentacles, it's levitating like on a horse. Now let's do one card read, and I'll share with you who I think this deck is for. And by the way, shuffling on this deck, it's a bit of a challenge because the decks are longer than your traditional deck. So I think if you're a David Bowie fan and you love his artistic style, this would be ideal. If you like the really bold, rich, and visually striking designs, especially Los Scarabeo design, this is definitely a deck you want to add to your collection. And what I like about this deck is the artwork is stunning. It's just the different elements of different arts to it. It's very logical as well. I like the introduction of Princess and Prince. It makes sense. Also, when I asked the deck how it wants to be read and what's it going to be used for, strange enough for me, it came up that it's a deck for career and financial readings, which is quite interesting. Maybe because of the amount of gold colors you see in it. That's probably why I use this deck only for a couple of weeks, and I feel like I only scratched the surface of the stories behind it. Right, that book that is actual book you can read. It's quite interesting, a lot of insights in it. And I suggest you buy a kit version rather than just a standard version, just because of the more value you get for that. Now, what I think probably downsides of this deck, the imagery is very bold and punchy, and it quite often can overpower your reads, and you have to refer to the book, right? Also, the deck wears out quite quickly. Like for instance here, that mark. Once you start using it a little bit, and I only use it maybe for 2 weeks, you start seeing these little scratches on the side. And similarly with the book, I found that the front page glue it got pulled apart pretty fast, and I haven't actually used the deck that hard. So it's probably two downsides that I found about it. All right, let's take a look, and you'll get to see what the reading looks like. Got a Justice card, another powerful card in the deck. Take a look here. I reap what I sow, I choose to walk the path of truth. And by the way, each one of these cards will have like a motto, a slogan that represents a card meaning. And there's going to be a bit of a story on how, what resonates with the author and the meaning of the card plus reverse. So in here, the principle of consequences, you reap what you sow, reclaim your power, take an honest inventory of your life, acknowledge your successes and defeats. Pretty similar to the traditional deck, right? And pretty much every card will have its own meaning, a bit of history. That's an explanation why the alien card, how the alien card was chosen instead of hermit, and a few other bits and pieces. And book itself, it's quite thick. So here's a deck, and this is a little sneak peek. I haven't opened this deck yet, so this is a stained glass tarot deck. From what I understand, this is a reissue and was released this year, but there was an early version of this deck. I'm not sure what the history is. Perhaps it's just slightly updated version of it. And I'm curious to see what's inside. It's been highly regarded for its design, so I think it's visually stunning deck. I'm hoping it's going to be on par with Los Scarabeo decks that I reviewed so far. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next one.